Hello and welcome to Spicy Toast Gaming and our Jhin guide for Path of Champions. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. Alright, let's get into it. Starting off with a overview, just giving you the basics of the champion and how they play, and some of their pros and cons, just so you know if this is someone you want to invest your time and shards into. Alright, starting off with Hybrid. So most of the champions in Path of Champions are either focused on buffing up their units, or they're very focused on spells and skills. Jhin actually is both. He's focused on doing those spells and skills, and as he does that, he's able to buff up his units. So he's able to have a very interesting playstyle where some games you're more focused on your giant units, but still using those spells and skills. And other times the units are a bit more of an afterthought, and it's more just using those spells and skills to win the game. So it's interesting how he has kind of a mix of both of those playstyles. Next we have Complex. Jhin is one of, if not the most complex champion in Path of Champions. So if you want to have a champion you really need to think about while you're playing, definitely go for Jhin. But if you're wanting more of a relaxed playstyle, and you don't necessarily have to think several moves ahead, then you might want to play someone else. Very rewarding. So, as part of that complexity, if you take the time to get good on him, you can clear all the content in the game relatively easily. He has a high skill ceiling, so being able to play him more, get better and better at him, you'll be able to get more and better results. Low investment. So he really only needs his 2 star power to really get going. You don't have to worry about getting all of the 3 star powers. And then you also don't need to worry about his level being overly high. He's pretty good right at the beginning. You just have to get good with him, essentially. So practicing him early, you'll be able to still win games very early on and not feel like you're being held back by your lack of star powers or lack of champion levels. Consistent. So once you do get good with him, you're very familiar, then you can consistently win those games regardless of who you're going up against. Control. So he has a lot of stuns in his kit. He's able to definitely control the map, control what the enemy is doing, control that board, and so you always feel like you have an option available to you. So no matter what the enemy is doing, you normally have a counter that you can stop whatever they are planning. Scaling sustain. So with Jhin, one of his abilities is Thermo Beam. What that does is it spends all of your mana to damage an enemy for an equal amount of the mana you spent. One of the items he gets by leveling up is he gets a health pot on Thermo Beam, and that heals him based on the amount of mana he spends. So the later in the game, you can use that and get a massive heal off by spending all of your mana to be able to essentially heal yourself. So most other kits don't actually have any way to sustain built in. And then even if they do, like Tom Kench, it's a health pot which does like 3 healing. Which, while that's nice, being able to spend mana later in the game to essentially get a full heal off is very nice. Alright, let's go ahead and look at Jhin in-game. Alright, in-game now with Jhin, taking a look at his card. So he's a 4 mana 4/4, and you'll be seeing this number a lot throughout Jin's abilities. So he has his origin, which doesn't really affect us too much as Path of Champions players. Attack, deal 2 to all stunned enemies when he's not leveled up. And then this is also this circle. This effect means it's a skill, so that'll be important later. Level up, you've played 12 plus fast spells, slow spells, or skills. Then when he levels up, he doesn't get any more stats because he likes those 4s, but he then gets quick attack, And now, when he attacks, his skill does 4 damage to all stunned enemies and the enemy nexus. So he does have a lot of stun synergy in there. His champion spell is Jhin's Dancing Grenade, 4 mana. Again, deal 1 to a unit, create a second bounce in hand at the next round start. So the second bounce is deal 4 to a unit. Then we have Lotus Trap, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. If Jhin is in play, stun the weakest enemy. So these Lotus Traps go off every 3 times you play a fast, slow, or skill. So you'll be triggering these Lotus Traps throughout the whole game. It's just going to help you get a little bit of chip damage on the enemy nexus, but then if Jhin is in play, he is able to actually stun the enemy board. So that'll be very useful for getting that more control aspect. Deadly Flourish, this is Jhin's ability, so when he attacks, he procs this off. This is the unleveled up version where he just deals 2 to all stunned enemies. And then this is the leveled up version of when he attacks, he deals 4 to all stunned enemies and the enemy nexus. So a lot of things to keep track of. This will definitely be one that will be a lot more clear in game, so I definitely recommend watching our part 2 guide where we take Jhin against Galio, so you can actually see a lot of the moving parts in game. Alright, we'll go over to his star powers. So his first star power, for every 4th fast, slow, or skill you play, create a captive audience in hand. So level 1, it still costs something, so it's a 2 cost. Deal 3 to an enemy, or stun an enemy. So again, giving those extra choices on, do you want to just deal damage to a unit? Do you want to just stun them? And you're able to trigger a lot of these while you're playing. And these also count towards that, it's a fast spell. So by playing these, you're actually counting towards making more of them. So you can get a lot of these, they're not fleeting, they can just sit in your hand. And they are very powerful. They really help with giving you more removal, as well as being able to stun. So his 3-star, it's the same thing, except now they cost 0 mana. His 2-star is that +1 starting mana, and when you play an ally with a skill, grant them 1/1. So as you have your units playing skills, including Jhin himself, they're getting buffed up throughout the game. So this is what gives him that hybrid playstyle I was mentioning in the overview, where his units, as they're on board, as they're using their skills, they're getting bigger and bigger, and Jhin himself. So unlike Annie, where you're just using all these different spells and skills, and your units are staying relatively the same, with Jhin, your units are getting more and more powerful, and so you might end up having these massive units just by playing. It's really nice and really does give you that hybrid playstyle. Alright, let's take a look at his starting deck. So you get Thermo Beam, like I mentioned earlier, with that health pot. So it spends all of your mana to deal that damage to a unit, but with that health pot just gives you great scaling sustain. So you can give yourself a huge heal, especially if you know you're about to win. You can dump all your mana, heal up your Nexus, and then win the game. So Crackshot Corsair, with that Savage Shield. This is very important. Great 1-drop. It plays a skill every time allies attack. So with his 2-star, it's able to constantly get bigger and bigger throughout the game. We have the Avarocian Marksman. So play, deal 1 to an enemy with an Ancient Coin. This is a fine card. It does play a skill. It is then triggering or counting towards your captive audience, being able to make another one of those. The problem is its skill only happens once. And so most of your other cards, their skills are able to trigger multiple times. But with this card, it doesn't scale. So normally I would cut this card if you're going to cut one from your deck. It's normally the Marksman. The other ones just scale way better throughout the game. Your other 2-drop, which is just better in my opinion, is Boom Crew Rookie. When you attack, you deal 2 to the enemy Nexus. So every time you attack, this one is going to be getting leveled up if he's attacking, and then the Corsair is also going to be getting those extra stats as well. 2-drop, you just have a Mystic Shot with a Fabricator on it, giving you a bit more removal, also triggering towards making those captive audiences. Stagehand, Ephemeral, and then when you play it, it stuns an enemy. So again, it has a skill on it, so it's going to scale up a bit more, going to count towards those captive audience. And then it's Ephemeral with Challenger, so this is very nice, kind of doing everything you need. It's cheap, it's stunning an enemy unit, and then if you're playing on the attack turn, you can use it to challenge and kill an enemy. And since it's ephemeral, you don't have to worry about taking care of it. You want to do as much as it can that turn, and that's all. So, Mana Soul Student, when you play one of the spells or skills, he'll play Magic Embers, deals 1 to the enemy nexus. So again, every turn, he's able to get scaled up, he's able to get those extra stats, and he's also helping trigger towards your captive audience. We have Jhin, we already talked about him, and then we have Yon, the Wind Chaser, or Yone, with that Nomad's Medallion, so he's reduced in cost. He works very well, plays another skill, stuns 2 enemies, can work very well when you're setting up a big stun with Jin's attack, so he can just clear the board with his ability. So a lot of your units all have skills that will play when you attack. So often you'll attack, you'll get all sorts of skills on the stack, you'll completely fill it up, and then you'll just be generating a whole bunch of both of your Lotus Traps, which will deal damage to the enemy nexus and stun if you have Jhin on the board, as well as all those captive audiences so you can do more damage or stun more units. So taking a look at the relics now, Archangel Staff and really all of the anything you can get to help with your mana are all very important, especially before you have his 3-star power, which makes your captive audience free. If you have the 3-star power, mana can still be good, but it's not as necessary. But especially before then, you're probably going to want to get those extra mana. So if you don't have 3-star Jhin, you probably want to pick up an Archangel Staff. If you do have the 3-star, you could probably get something better, like the Ludens, making all of your spells and skills deal 1 extra damage. Since you're doing so much of that anyways, this is actually pretty massive. Crown Guard Inheritance can work. Your attack is really big, and if you already have the entire board stunned, being able to attack twice once he's leveled up, you should kill everything as well as the enemy nexus, most likely. Chase Gun doesn't really work too well. These are burst, so they're not actually helping towards your level up, your captive audience, your Lotus Traps is not helping with any of those, so you probably don't want to do that. Gale Force for the same thing with Crown Guard. Being able to attack twice can be pretty good. I will say with Gale Force, you normally want your Jhin on the board so that when the captive audiences go out, he's able to stun the enemy. And then also with Ludens, this extra damage only works if he's on the board. So you normally don't want the recall effect. So Gale Force can work, but it's going to be changing your playstyle, and it doesn't really help you in the best way. But that 2 attacks is very strong. Tempest Blade, when I level up, stun all enemies. This can be very good for Jhin because you want everyone stunned so that when you attack, you're damaging all of them. The one issue is that you have to make sure you're leveling up when you have the attack. So either you have to play around that, or you want to run Tempest Blade with Crown Guard, run both of those together, and then try to just win and count on winning on your attack turn. So going and looking at some of the commons. So Spell Shield, I like it on Jhin because, like I said, you normally want to have him on board for a while, for multiple turns. That gives the enemy many opportunities to get rid of your Jhin because You can't just wait for them to be out of mana, play him, because the next turn they're going to get their mana back, and if they have a spell, they're going to be able to use it to get rid of your Jhin. So since you want him on board, since he helps your whole game plan so much, having some extra protection is pretty good. Lost Chapter, if you're wanting, if you need that extra mana, if you don't have him at 3 stars, Lost Chapter can definitely be good. When I'm summoned, Stun the strongest enemy can be nice since you have so much stun synergy. He does get quick attack when he levels up, but if you're wanting a bit more safety when you're attacking before you're leveled up, you may want to go with Storm Razor or Challenger. Challenger will help you then after you level up, so just something to consider. Chameleon's Necklace, if you're not drawing your Jhin enough, this can also help you out. Star Child Staff, just in case you're taking too much damage, that can also be helpful. Alright, so that is the relics as well as just everything in-game going over with Jhin. I know it was a lot, there's a lot of things to keep track of. I definitely recommend watching our in-game part 2 of this playthrough, where we're going to go through and fight Galio. That way you'll actually be able to see in action how everything works and clicks together. So highly recommend that. For now though, let's go take a look at the in-game powers you want to shoot for with Jhin, as well as the support champions you might want to get with him. Hello everyone, Spicy Toast Gaming here, just having to put in a quick correction. I recorded this guide Thursday morning, and then Thursday afternoon I put out the relics video. Everyone was telling me how good Riptide Battery was on Jhin. Wasn't something I ever tested on him before. So after all the comments, I tested it in game, works very well, and so I just want to add one little correction to the relics part of this video, that Riptide Battery does work quite well on Jhin. So how it works is Plunder, play Cannon Barrage a number of times equal to my cost. So it's going to be 4 mana, unless you're reducing his cost in game, and it has Plunder. So that means you have to hit the enemy nexus before you play Jhin in order for that to go off. Now, Jhin is able to do that in multiple ways. He has some units that can damage the nexus with their skills. He also has Mystic Shot, but the easiest is his Lotus Trap. So if you're looking at Jhin, he has to be in your hand already, but then when you've had 3 skills go off, a Lotus Trap will happen and it will damage the enemy nexus. If Jin's on board, it will also stun. But that's how you can easily get this off without having to actually attack, because normally attacking to get that plunder doesn't make it worth it. But with Riptide Battery, this is a skill, and since that's a skill, it scales very well with Jhin. So by playing it, these all count as skills that Jhin has used. So it's leveling him up based on those star powers, and then also counts towards his actual level up. So you play this, Jhin gets 4/4 just from it going off. And then this is also going to be generating more Lotus Traps as well as more captive audiences. So this is very powerful. If you were level 30 and you had 3 rare relics, you'd probably want to run Luden's Tempest, Riptide Battery, and then Crown Guard Inheritance, the one that gives you Rally, right here. Because what you could do is you trigger that plunder, you play Jhin, this goes off, he gets super buffed up, you get all these captive audience in hand, you get those Lotus Traps going off, and then you can do a big swing with your Rally and wipe the board and potentially win the game right there. Also, you can put more than one Riptide Battery on Jhin if you have it, and so things can get pretty crazy with running multiples of these. So just want to do a quick correction explaining that, and now let's go back to the video as normal. Taking a look at the in-game powers with Jhin, this is definitely more suited towards if you don't have that 3-star power, like I mentioned earlier. These are all going to help you with your spells. The most common spell you're going to be playing is that captive audience you're going to be generating. So Since it's a created spell, getting Wild Inspiration can definitely help with that, as well as Spell Slinger. And then Sorcery is just always good, so you have the mana to play either your created cards or any other spells you get. So these are all always helpful, but especially if you don't have that 3 stars yet, these are definitely ones you want to shoot for. Next here are some good powers that work and synergize very well with Jhin. So Bouncing Blades, it creates a Blade's Edge in hand, which is a fast speed spell. Normally costs 1 mana and deals 1 damage. If you have Ludens on Jhin, then it'll be dealing 2 damage. And then if you had one of the earlier powers that makes your spells cost 1 less, then it would be free. So the reason why this is so good is it feeds into Jhin's Lotus Traps, as well as making more of those captive audience. So having that spawned every round, pretty nice. The Enfeebling Strike, you have so many spells that can damage the enemy that being able to just reduce their attack without actually having to hit them with your units really helps you in those longer matches and gives you a large amount of survivability. The Hold It, round start, stun an enemy, good defensive, but then also Jhin scales well with stuns, and so it kind of feeds into each other of both having good defensive power, but then also when you attack, you're able to remove that card by Jin's attack power. The last group of powers here focus more on your units, so giving them Fury. Since your units are getting pretty big, further focusing on improving them can definitely help you out. So just giving them Fury so that when they kill a unit, they get a little bit stronger. Endurance over here to the right, when an ally survives damage, gives it 1/1, works pretty much the same way as Fury, just helping your units get a bit stronger. Now, Overwhelm is actually very important. I normally don't run with Troll King's Crown, the relic that gives you Overwhelm, but having Overwhelm on your units is very important, especially Jhin, because what happens is your Lotus Traps, they trigger while you're attacking, so while you're attacking, you are stunning the enemy units. Now, that can really cause a problem if you don't have Overwhelm, because quite often your attack will get fizzled. So what that means, if you're not sure, is if the unit's gone when you're attacking, then your character won't actually do their attack, because their unit that they're going to hit, their blocker, is just gone, so the attack fails essentially. If a unit has Overwhelm though, it doesn't matter if that blocker is taken away, they'll still go through and hit that Nexus. So having Overwhelm really helps you win games a lot faster, and kind of removes the one part of anti-synergy that can be in the kit of you have big units, they're going to attack, they block, you accidentally stun them because of the Lotus Trap, there's not really anything you can do about it, and then your attack doesn't actually go through. So Overwhelm, definitely good on Jhin, and one you should try to shoot for if possible, or at least get Overwhelm on Jhin himself through a champion chest if you can. Alright, that's it for the powers. Let's go and take a look at the support champions. So support champions for Jhin. Before I show some of the champions that I would recommend, I want to first take a look at what you want to be looking for when you're deciding a support champion. So first is skills. The cards that they have, you want them to have a skill that they're going to be doing, hopefully one that they can do multiple times, because then they'll be scaling up with your 2-star power and getting bigger and bigger, as well as triggering your captive audience and your Lotus Traps. Next is stuns. Jhin scales very well with stuns, so another champion that can have synergy with stuns and help you out with that is something you want to be looking for. And lastly is just items. So if the cards themselves aren't really that good, but their items are ones you'll really be able to take use of and can really fit with your game plan, then you might want to take a champion that normally wouldn't work for your playstyle, but their items are very good and they're just better than any other option you see on the board. Alright, next, so for actual champions that I recommend, Annie. Annie works very well. Her cards all use skills. She scales the same way Jhin does by using those fast, slow skill or spells as well as skills. And then her cards also use skills themselves. So Annie works very well. Next is Swain. Swain also works very well for triggering stuns or damaging stunned units, and then doing out of combat damage. Swain also works very well. Lastly is Yasuo. So we're actually putting out a guide for Yasuo. I believe it'll come out on Monday. But Yasuo scales very well with stuns as well. So using that together, Yasuo will often help be able to clear the enemy board because you keep stunning people, and so then Yasuo goes and damages them. And then Yasuo's kit also has a lot of stuns in it as well. So these are some of the support champions you might want to look out for. But again, also just look at the things I mentioned earlier with the skills, stuns, and items. You don't always have to go with the same champions, because normally the best support champions, you're not even going to see them. Or at least you're not going to see them the majority of games. So just looking for those aspects whenever you're looking at a support champion. Alright, that's it for the guide. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. And we're putting out those daily Path of Champions videos. Thank you so much for watching that video. We're putting out daily content for Path of Champions, so if that interests you, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and comment down below. We're just starting out here on YouTube, trying to grow the channel, so any help is greatly appreciated. Thank you, and have a great day.